Hi, I have no idea what the camera quality on this is because this was supposed to be at 10 a.m. But first I was late because I did one of those. Have you ever done the one where you're like, oh, I have to go to the bathroom, but you're in a hurry? This only happens to men. You're in a hurry. So you sit down the toilet and you start peeing, and then you realize you haven't adjusted into a peeing configuration. So you pee sort of down and straight in a way that it hits the upper lip of the inner side of the toilet and goes between the toilet seat and the toilet bowl. So the pee then pours down the front of the toilet seat. And I think this has happened to every man at some point, probably hundreds of times. It happened to me this morning. And it brought me to a different mental health issue, which is, who are the people who shit and piss on toilet seats in public? Who are you? One of you must be watching this, because every time I go into a public bathroom that isn't like a nice public bathroom, someone has peed all over the toilet and not cleared it up. And who are you? Because it can't just be like the weird, crazy people. There have to be some like ostensibly normal motherfuckers who are pissing and shitting on public toilets. And I don't get it. I'm like, do I know these people? Are they hidden amongst my friends? Who pees all over a toilet seat and then walks away from it? Like, I just don't get it. So hi, my name is Max Landis. I'm a writer and an artist, sort of, and a director and a number of other things. And I have had a bit of a journey with my mental health that continues now. And I've talked about it in public a bit, but today is National Mental Health Awareness Day. And I'm very nervous. That's real. That shake is real. I'm very nervous, but I thought I'd open myself up to a lot. Let me just say, a lot of people who follow me throughout the years, I'm not just doing this for me, although I am doing it for me because it feels great to talk to people about this stuff. But a lot of people over the years have identified with the fact that I'm a kind of public figure who has been through a lot, not in terms of like great socioeconomic struggles, but real mental health issues, not like depression and anxiety, but like stuff that has really had a deep, dark effect on my life and the lives of others. And I'm someone who's mostly come out of that, but that took years of very focused work, and the work continues. And a lot of different stuff has been said about me publicly. I've said a lot of stuff. But I thought it would be interesting to open myself up to people to answer questions about my mental health journey or give advice about their mental health journey, and just take it away from comic books and movies and sort of like the philosophy surrounding storytelling and, of course, Superman and whatever else this brand of this channel is. I wanted to take it to a real place where you and me, or a million yous and only one of me, could, to quote another mentally ill artist, could talk. So let's go. Weed would make this so much fun. Loki, why don't you kiss my ass? I'm fun with or without drugs, okay? Have a good time on my live stream either way. Okay, so if I could describe my mental health as a superhero, what would it be? The Hulk. I actually have a poster of the Hulk back there. Since I was very young, I struggled with rampaging out of control emotions. And for a long time, they thought this was ADHD, and then they thought it was bipolar, and then they thought it was something called cyclothymia, which is a form of rapid cycling bipolar. And now I don't have an acronym or a diagnosis. They just say there's something up. That's been the final verdict. But I really relate to the Hulk in a lot of ways because I have some BPD spiraling behaviors where I'll get a piece. This used to be much worse. This used to be like my defining issue, where I would get a piece of bad news or negative stimulus, and it was literally like, choo-choo, like that. Like, just my whole way of thinking would change. And it still happens to me sometimes, but now I have a lot of things I've learned to sort of slow it down. But I would go into this completely dark mental state, sort of the state of the broken child, which is what the Hulk is ultimately, is the state of the broken child. And I would sort of just lose control. And by lose control, oftentimes as an adult, when I'd lose control, it wouldn't be sometimes if I was really fucked up, but not usually. Usually for me, it would manifest as just becoming unbelievably unfucking unfucking consolable negative, and being around me is just fucking draining. If I have 93 people watching, I want 93 likes. Okay, I made a feature film where I play every character and then released it to YouTube, and it has like 2,000 likes. Like my goddamn YouTube video costs you nothing. Okay, let's start answering some questions. Okay, let's do this. Wow, there's so many. On the Bizarre States podcast, you described yourself in high school as a cult leader. Could you elaborate on that? Well, I was definitely, uh, I wasn't a cult leader because I had no friends. Like, I had people who would come in and out of my life till I was like 14, 15. I didn't really have friends. I was like this Tasmanian devil, out of control kid who was in special ed all the time. I wasn't really around other kids my age because I was so like nuts. And when I would be, they'd be alienated by me really quick. And so I had like one or two friends in like junior high. But then once I got into high school, it was just the girls I was dating, who were usually like very left of center, very weird girls who were attracted to this crazy, chaotic guy. So as an adult, people would become fascinated with me and would think I contain vastly more multitudes than I actually contain, and because people would project things on me. And I have a big personality. I'm confident, and I appear confident, and I'm theatrical. And a lot of people are like, "Wow, that guy is so comfortably himself." And so they project these things on me that aren't true to my personality, and then are super disappointed when either they don't get to become another person through me, or I end up hurting them or disappointing them or being a normal guy. So at different points in my life, I've been called a cult leader. The most notable of this was during my late 20s into my 30s, when I had this giant collection, basically a community of people in LA that I wasn't the leader of, but I was throwing parties and paying for everything, and I was the one connecting everyone. So people who weren't actually my friends in that group, who were sort of users or mentally unwell people, or it was a really messy group of people. Nuts attracts nuts. Nuts doesn't always attract normal. So many people in their Me Too story, or their story of someone with mental illness, that it's always something like, yeah, and they only have bad memories of a relationship that went on like for multiple years. And it's like, how is this possible? And it's usually because they are cutting out the part. If it's not an individual incident, if it's a relationship that went on for years and years and years, it's usually that they're cutting out their part of the dynamic because they can't take accountability for it, and they don't want to because it's ugly. And just because you were part of a dynamic doesn't mean the other person didn't hurt you. So I've ended up in that situation a lot, where I attract people to me in mass who are damaged, and then I am damaged, and then we go like this and chaos. And that element, the cult leader element of me, is sort of part of the folktale that's been grown around me. When in reality, I'm just sort of a dork who desperately wants friends and doesn't know how to connect to people. How do you deal with guilt and forgiveness? Needing forgiveness or feeling guilty, accepting pain that you have done to others, and having to live with it without forgiveness. That's a big part of my life. Guilt is really interesting because guilt is not generally useful, and it's often very self-indulgent. I know many people, there are different forms of guilt. I know many people who feel a toxic form of guilt that is all about them. And actually, the guilt for the way that they wronged someone is more about them needing to feel forgiven. And I felt this way. This is an immature way to feel guilt. I'm not saying I'm above any behavior that I identify in others. I'm a guy who has had to like climb a wall of spikes to get to any level of emotional maturity. So like, I just find that guilt can be incredibly indulgent. Shame is also indulgent, but they're connected in that really they're both about empathy, ideally. Sometimes guilt and shame are about feeling bad for yourself, and sometimes guilt and shame are about empathy for the way your actions affected someone else. And no matter who you are, even if you're Mahatma Gandhi, every time you wrong someone and you feel bad about it, it's going to be a mix of these two different sort of chemical equations of what guilt and shame are. So I'm someone who's really wronged people. I'm someone who I have made choices in my life that when I look back on them, I'm like, what? What a fucking psycho asshole. Like a great example of something that like haunts me is I was cheating on someone and they kind of cheated on me. And I, without telling them I was cheating on them, totally took the high mountain, shamed the living hell out of them, was so shocked and hurt. And it was so funny because in my head, I didn't connect. Hey, this is my 20s. I'm a total fucking hypocrite. Like, oh my God. Because I was just immature and dumb. So at the time, I felt no guilt and shame for that. And now that, amongst so many other things, I will never be forgiven by this person for that and a million other things. But the lesson isn't I should feel bad forever and I should feel guilty forever. The lessons of guilt and shame are being able to look at what happened objectively and go, here's my accountability in it to yourself. Because the truth is, even if someone you hurt forgives you and gives you like the big cookie of like, I'll give you a second chance, or the even better thing that happens sometimes is when you have a conversation with an ex and they go, I really hated you for a long time, but now I realize that it was a messy thing, and you get some level of understanding or forgiveness. Even that won't fix the guilt and shame, because the truth is the only way to really get forgiveness is to forgive yourself. And that doesn't mean let yourself off the hook. It means exit the narrative where you are a villain. Because if you're living in the that means you're living you. Did my thing break? Scott Derrickson has been talking about me since 2012. I've never met him. I don't understand. I don't know. I know that when he tweeted about Glass Planet, I got like a whole bunch of new Glass Planet appointments, and I was like, "Oh, thank you, Scott." But I just try not to. Was that hand gesture taken directly from the DSM? I don't understand that. Let me scroll back up. Answer the next question. Okay. Let's see. Sorry. The biggest effect Kryptonian Epic has had on your mental health, positive or negative? It's been super positive because it was a reminder. It was a reminder to me to create and to think and to build. And those are all things that I find healing. And of course, talking about it with my following has been incredible. Again, 116 viewers, 67 likes. I see you. I'm just trying to make it so the next time I put out some crazy thing on here, the algorithm doesn't just. But so, I'm sorry, where? Oh, yeah. So the Kryptonian Epic was healing, has been hugely healing. And it's allowed me, the Kryptonian Epic isn't just about Superman. It's about my worldview. The characters in the Kryptonian Epic more directly, and the things that happen more directly than in anything else I've written, reflect my view of the world and my view of people, down to like who are the main bad guys ultimately at the end of the Kryptonian Epic, right? They're Luthor, Wanda Savage, Darkseid, and my brain stopped working. I forgot my last villain. Holy fuck. Fuck, there's 4 of them! Zod! but each of them represents a different thing I think is evil. Each of them represent a different thing I think is evil in the world. I don't know if this is actually working right now. I keep saying it's like unstable and reconnecting. But Zod represents ego and narcissism. Luther represents sort of capitalism and greed. Dark side represents blindness due to, I don't want to spoil what dark side represents, but then Wandel Savage represents religion and the fact that people who use religious language and religious ideas to excuse themselves are often the most dangerous people in the world. Zod is a narcissist. My version of Zod is cool. And he's a narcissist who can't see how his actions impact himself, the people around him, his planet, and then eventually other planets. And then Luther is, of course, a guy who just wants power, relentlessly wants power because he thinks it will turn him into a better version of himself. And what does it get him? Nothing. Now, these are all lessons I learned in my life, so I take it seriously. But thank you for asking me about that. Let's talk more about like actual Kryptonian, not Kryptonian. Let's talk more about mental health. Okay. How my creativity has had an effect on my life, positive and negative. It has never had a negative effect on my life. My creativity saved my life. When I was little, the love language of my family was movies and storytelling. And so in order to get my parents' attention, because they both had PTSD from going through the Twilight Zone trial, and they're also big personalities and their own people, in order to get their attention, I just became bigger and bigger and crazier. And they were like very good parents, but I was like fucking nuts. So they were just like struggling to like, wait, he sounds a little unhinged, like he could cry at any moment. What's happened to him? Is it because of drug use, or did he have a nervous breakdown at some point? I subscribed a long time ago. I'm out of the loop. Bro, you think this is unhinged and you subscribed a long time ago? This is just, I just drank a Red Bull, dog, and I did yoga. So I'm like in a good mood. Also, when you subscribed, I was probably like way on drugs, and now I'm like just sort of smoking weed and stuff. Sorry. How did Kentucky Fried Movie affect your life? It was how I found out that it's how I found out that my dad's insane. Okay, so do I resent my cancellation? No. I resent my cancellation in some ways because some of my cancellation is lies, which is something that's like very hard because you're not like allowed to say that publicly. But a lot of my cancellation is specifically around relationships, or the relationships that were in the public shaming. Those were really toxic, dysfunctional relationships that are being presented in a very specific, very edited way. And so I can see the edits, and I know those. You have to keep in mind, these aren't random, I'm not Weinstein. I wasn't like a Weinstein figure. These are people I was like really involved with. So they're people I know super well. And so like, I resent the things I can tell they know aren't true. And I resent why they did it because I know them really well and I understand what led to it and the emotional that led to it. But that said, it is what it is. And the truth is, in my life, not in the article, but in my life, I've really hurt people. And I was a toxic man, and I was a fuckboy, and I was unstable. And at the end of the day, I mean, I don't even know if there's such a thing as an asshole in real life beyond the walls of mental health. I think mental health is responsible for so much of what tortures humans and causes them to hurt each other, that me putting my choices and actions completely onto my mental health, like, it would just be bullshit because everything we do is tied into our mental health. Do I resent it because of my mental health? No, because my mental health led to me hurting people. Do I resent it because it came years after I had stopped that behavior and I knew the people really involved really well and I know why they did it and it's kind of a corrupt enterprise? Yes. Do I feel I hate those people or that I didn't treat them badly? No. So it's this intensely, it's not a binary narrative. It's real life. Parts of my cancellation, I resent the fact that, my cancellation, when I was publicly shamed, people pretend because they have to that public shaming is just and sane, but it isn't. And the most interesting thing about public shaming is that you're not allowed to complain about it because then you're playing the victim. That I resent because someone tried to murder me. My family got threats. My female friends were pressured, bullied, and attacked. People from like my past, like teachers who had meant a tremendous amount to me in my life, mentors who hadn't heard from me in a while, we're now hearing that I had become a Patrick Bateman style monster, basically a creature so far ingrained in evil that any sign of change from me is a delusion, and it's gaslighting. Public shaming is gaslighting. It's an attack on your identity that forces you to adopt the narrative of a person who you either did or didn't really hurt. And you can have the ones that are more like Weinstein or James Tomac, where they're like using their position to get to pressure and coerce and attack women. And then you have ones like mine, which are like, this guy's a fucking train wreck. Except they don't just say I'm a train wreck, they say I'm like the devil. So I don't resent it. I resent elements of it. But at the end of the day, I had a lot of fucking problems. So it didn't shock me that it happened. That it came from the people it came from for the reasons it came shocked me and taught me a lot about people and the internet and Los Angeles. And also who I was involving myself with. Because like I said, I was chaos and I was attracted to chaos. Sophie Pineapple, you say, I've known a lot of people with mental health issues and they hurt people around that were not assholes. It wasn't what they wanted. I really wouldn't equate the two things. Okay, well, there we go. So I'm not equating the two things, but they are connected. People being sharp, jagged, or mean to each other for no reason, or, I'm not an asshole, but I have been an asshole throughout my life. I've been arrogant and manic. I've had bad boundaries. I've been horribly mean to people for no reason. You have to balance personal accountability with stuff that you can feel you're out of control of, people keep asking about my hair. Yeah, of course. I love rainbows. And the year I dyed my hair rainbow, I was really struggling because I had just destroyed our relationship. I was at the height of my career and I was doing, making millions of dollars, and people finally had like started to like me, which was crazy because people really hated me the first couple of years of my career. But finally people were like willing to acknowledge like, hey, he's maybe good at things. And I had never really had that in my life. Even during my success, everyone was doubting and questioning me, and I was constantly doubting and questioning myself. But even while I was that happy, I was severely mentally ill and going into deep depression, up and down, messing up my life, making all sorts of like erratic, crazy decisions. The rainbow hair is not a decision I regret, but it was part of me struggling to figure out my identity after blowing up another really meaningful relationship to me. How do I have the opportunity to speak with any of my exes? Are there people who did shame you during your cancellation and have come back to apologize for it? Are you really tall? So yes, I am really tall, but I'm not really tall. I'm 6'3.5". And you know who's 6'3.5"? guys who wish they were 6'4", and I do wish I was 6'4", but I'm happy with how tall I am. Have I talked to any of my exes? I'm still in communication with some of my exes. Have I talked to any of the people who were involved in my public shaming? Not only do they not want to talk to me, but our relationships to them is now totally two-dimensional, and they have adopted. They talk to me in the times I've communicated with the people involved in my shaming. One of them told me I was a bad writer and a psycho, and I was like, we dated for 3 years. What? And it was funny because what I wanted to say back to her was, but you don't even have good taste. And they've binaried. They're not down to talk. And honestly, I don't need to talk to them because they've made their decision. They publicly said I was evil. Like, some of these people are people who I have like really complicated relationships with. One of the people in my shaming is an abuser who got like 40 grand out of me. So like, it's not about that anymore. It's not about trying to get people to forgive you, because the public shaming is a show, right? It's a show. It's for the internet. It's about business and public image, right? So like, it affected my business and my public image, but in my real life, I have real connections with my real close friends and real connections with some of my exes. The exes involved in my shaming are people who hate me. They're not interested in talking to me. They're not interested in forgiving me. One of them posted a Twilight Zone accident joke. Like, I don't, they've gone in order to fully, because I treated some of these girls, these women, so badly. And I was such a train wreck, that the fact that it was more than that, I think some people, they need that line. And I've been that way, where I need to think of someone as a total piece of shit in order to let them go. Because if I start remembering the good things, it goes crazy. The personal relationship with my fans and viewers. Well, does the presence of the audience in your life compound your issues? Of course it does. My relationship to the internet has always been fucking crazy. I like catfished a wrestling forum at one point. I was manic for years. I was like nuts. So like, I don't know if you used to follow me on Twitter, but like, I would just say whatever I wanted. I would shit on other artists. And I didn't understand. What it was to be seen, and the person who people were seeing. I didn't understand how to present myself. And that was in my personal life too. So I was constantly in this place of like, why does everyone hate me? I hate everyone. Fuck everyone. No, people hate me. People hate me for, am I bisexual? Sadly, no. I am a cis Jewish male. The two reasons people hate me, and they really do hate me for only two reasons, people who don't know me. They either hate me because, other than the shaming stuff, but the people hated me for years, which was hard because when I was young, everyone hated me. You talk about an audience. To me, the whole world was an audience from when I was very little, because I had no deep connections with people. And so it just felt like everyone hated me, so everyone was an audience, and it didn't matter. Fuck everyone. I had this very like hot topic view of the world for years, and the audience being there and me slowly growing a fan following online from like Drunk Comic Book History onward, it was hard. It's even harder because I have relationships with a few of my fans who've been around for a long time. But what's interesting is that so often, especially during my shaming, I would get these really long messages from people being like, you let me down. And it was always like, bro, my mom's like crying in the other room right now. My family is being torn apart and attacked constantly for the second time as a family. You don't know me. I would read these messages and they would cut me so deep because people think they know me. Like you said about Scott Derrickson, like, I've wanted to meet that guy for years because I've heard we would get along. And like, it's just funny, man. It's the audience thing, the fact that people who don't know me, the fact that Zoe Quinn, a person I don't know, who was publicly shamed to start her career for infidelity, that she participated in my shaming even though I don't know her. It was like, that's the thing that's not helpful, you know? That's the thing that's not helpful. You say, also, Max, names, names, names. They feel no compunction about dragging your name through the mud. Don't worry about attacking them by name. You're talking about my exes? Have you not been listening to to anything I've said? I don't think about my exes that way. Even my ex who was an abuser, she didn't mean to be an abuser. She's a complicated, messed up person searching for meaning in her life and searching for stability, which she didn't have. All my exes, not one of them would I name or would I shame, because a lot of them I treated really badly. Fight fire with fire. This isn't a fight, right? Conflict shouldn't be a fight. You want to talk about mental illness advice? One of the things that took me forever to learn in relationships is that conflict shouldn't be about winning or losing. It needs to be about ending the conflict. And if conflicts around the same things keep arising, then you break up. But like, people get locked in winning or losing. And even now, even with how, if I'm being negative about my exes on here, they are people who I've hurt. So the fact that they've hurt me, yeah, that's real life. Like, we're all lost in the sauce right now with the internet. We are lost in the barbecue sauce. It's tangy. And we're acting like relationships are narratives, and they're not. They're super complicated. Speaking of Dora the Explorer porn. Oh no, that's not real. They did all mods on boards hated me because I was like insane on message boards. But I never Dora the Explorer porn. I always hear new. It's crazy. Dave Chappelle's trans jokes. I think, why are you doing that? The trans phenomenon right now is in the spotlight because we're becoming transhuman, not because transsexuality is the most important thing in the world. I have trans friends. All my trans friends don't make a big deal about pronouns. You just respect their pronouns, and they're normal artists and people working in Los Angeles. Like, they're not purple-haired internet harpies. That is, and the thing is, I mean, like, my politics have always been, I'm very center left. I'm like Connie Britton on White Lotus. And maybe that's privilege, and maybe that's the fact that I've lived in Miami and Connecticut, and I've been poor. And or at least I've always had the backbone of my family money. But there was a time when I worked at McDonald's, and when I worked at a comic book shop, and when I worked at a Halloween costume store, and I was living alone in a little apartment in Davie, Florida, having weird adventures with white trash people, and just like. So I've always been very center left, and where I come down. Why are we talking about trans? Why are we talking about trans? Let's get back. Max, do I hate capitalism? This is not. Let's get back to mental health. Okay. I very often struggle with seeing people display a total lack of empathy towards others. Any tidbits on how to cope with that? Because it really pulls me down. So our society is based around limiting empathy. If we really felt true, heart open empathy, if everyone did, our society would not be the way it is. It would be a utopia, because we would all be working to help each other all the time. But the thing is, that doesn't exist really in mammals. Like, even within wolf packs, there's politics and backstabbing, even within meerkats. The only place you see that kind of generalized everyone togetherness is in insects. And that's because our complex brains cause us to have a very unique to the person experience of the world. And that shapes our ability to feel for other people. And that shapes our ability to defend ourselves. So someone like me, who for a long time had a lot of walls up and didn't know how to take them down, brother has been diagnosed with autism and bipolar. I'm sorry. I want to be able to answer all these questions. I really do. Okay, I'll watch Brittany Simon. Hello. My gosh, I'm sorry. I thought it would be less than this. This is a lot, but I'll keep trying to. How do you separate your identity from the things you have done in mental states like mania, where you've done things you wouldn't do otherwise? I struggle with this. I recognize that I'm sick. I'm sick. Uh, it's called mental illness, not mental attitude. Anyone who's been manic or anyone who's been triggered and said 40 things in a row they didn't mean, and then when they come down, gone. I mean, we all know that feeling. People who aren't mentally ill know that feeling. And mental illness is just an expansion of the how can I contain multitudes that contradict each other and hurt the people I love and hurt me and leave me alone. Well, the truth is you have to look at where it's coming from. When you do things when you're manic, that's still you. It is coming from somewhere inside you. You can't Bruce Banner it, because even the Hulk is coming from somewhere inside Banner. And you can't disassociate yourself like that. You are one person. And a huge part of recognizing, of finding a holistic integration with the different elements of your personality, is accepting that all states of you are still you, and you are accountable to the things you did, maybe not to the law, maybe not to other people, because we're not talking about crimes or necessarily some big blow up, but I'm talking about just choices. You have to look at your choices, how you got there. And when you feel yourself making that type of choice again, you have to remember. And finding ways to remember while you're manic, finding ways to slow your thought process, finding stopgaps where you check in with yourself, instead of falling into this righteous I need mindset, which is where a lot of people with bipolar and a lot of mental illness goes. They go into I need. What was the trigger to seek help for the first time? Real intention to change. It sounds like you had encounters with providers as a young adult, but what was the come to Jesus moment? There is no come to Jesus moment for me. It was not about one thing. It has been so many different things over time, because there wasn't a big flip. I mean, this was a big flip. My early 2017, it was like a big flip, because I, at that point, had lost a lot of my best friends. I had destroyed a relationship where I was in love with someone. I was the most intense feelings I've ever had for any other person. And I nuked it. That person will never speak to me again. They're not in my shaming, but it's interesting, because maybe that was part of it. But then I also, I've always been in really intense therapy my whole life. And I've been on many different medications. I got kicked out of high school and sent to a program for kids with emotional and mental problems and social problems. And I was there for 3 years. So that could have been a come to Jesus. And it was in some ways. It made me less erratic. But then years passed and I was still kind of nuts. And I became like this super successful screenwriter guy, which no one thought. When I was little, this is not a joke. I'm not making this up. When I was little, a psychiatrist had this talk with my parents where they were like, he will probably end up homeless. And that was where I started, guys. Like, you thought the rainbow hair was weird. But yeah, a big come to Jesus moment. I've had a couple. Actually, no. You know what? I can name 4. My best friend was like, hey, I'm not your best friend anymore after 8 years, because you bring people into my life. You've never been mean to me, but you bring people into my life and treat them like shit and then leave. and then expect me to just go along with it. And so he had been friends with several of my girlfriends and several people who I'd had like little feuds with. And because I was nuts, and or they were nuts, or we were both, it's Los Angeles, we were both nuts. But he was like, I'm bailing on you. And I was like, I get it. And my reaction being, I get it, really surprised me. And then the real big come to Jesus moment was I just realized I have to stop repeating this pattern or I will never find love and I will never be happy. So I got a tattoo on my arm to remind myself that if I ever feel like something in my life needs to change, or I'm making a choice that isn't healthy or could hurt someone, or I'm not doing enough work or I'm not focused, I have a tattoo that says more rock, less talk. And the crazy thing is, it's so corny, but it totally worked. And then I read a book called The Untethered Soul. That was a big come to Jesus because I was like, I am not my actions. I can control my actions. I'm not defined by things I've done. That was in 2016. And then what else? There's so many, man. Like then holy shit. I started going to see a narcissism specialist because throughout my life, I'm super self-involved because I'm always thinking about stories and I have this big emotional palette. I'm always talking about myself. So people have thought I'm a narcissist. I'm not anything close to what a narcissist is. I don't have any clinical narcissist signifiers. I just never shut the fuck up. And when you watch me on YouTube, I seem like this big personality guy. But so I started seeing a narcissism recovery specialist. And after a year, she was like, I don't think you're a narcissist. And I was like, wow, that means I have no excuses. I have no excuses for not trying my best at all times. And then I did this thing, the Hoffman process. There have been so many different come to Jesus moments. They're still going on. Narcissism is incurable. And narcissism isn't a real disease. Reminder that all of these diagnoses being thrown around on Twitter and Netflix aren't real diseases. They're patterns of behavior that are grouped closely. So someone can be a narcissist in one relationship while in many other relationships being a perfectly normal and lovely person. Or you get like a Trump-style narcissist where this isn't a political thing, but Trump cannot stop talking about himself. Even if you love him, you know that. So that's a type of narcissist too, where it's like really toxic. But like, people can have narcissistic behaviors. Our behavior is contextualized by our context, So like when people say narcissism is incurable, I mean, no, you can literally grow out of bipolar. That can happen to some people. Like bad bipolar can go away as you get into your 30s. Like many mental health issues seem to either intensify or fade in the mid 20s. And I personally believe the reason for that is that you just live, you just sort of live your life and learn and grow. And even someone with mental illness can organically grow out of it. That's just true. I've seen it happen. I've experienced it. Okay. How much does creativity help you maintain positive mental health? That and working out. That's it. Creating and working out and seeing my friends. That's it. Oh, we keep asking about save my life. No, I'm too self-critical to be a narcissist. Don't be fooled. Don't be fooled. Narcissists are very capable of self-criticism as long as they're still talking about themselves. I talk about mental health optimistically because I have seen so many people talk about it so dramatically. And mental health can be operatic and frightening and dramatic and can cause real pain and disaster. But at the same time, once you externalize it to the point that it's this boogeyman and you're like, my mental health, and you're posting memes on Twitter about your mental health. You're your mental health's bitch. Like if you're posting memes about being anxious, how is that? It's a fucking loop. Of course you're going to be anxious. Josh Trank. Josh Trank was a guy who bullied me in high school and dated a girl I liked and wasn't very nice to me. And then years later, I had started to become kind of a hot screenwriter. And I went over to that girl's house and he was living there now, even though they weren't dating. And he had an idea about boys who got superpowers, found footage, and then one of them died. And because he got hit by a plane. And then the other one turned bad. And I was like, And I just sort of wrote Chronicle. A lot of Chronicle's mine in terms of the stuff that's in it. But Chronicle, the fact that it's really good is all Josh. Because I've written enough good scripts, I feel, and then seen the movie and been like, so Josh and I, during the production of Chronicle, got along fairly well. We're both big personalities. What I liked about Josh is that he had never worked in the studio system, so he was very unafraid of executives. But Josh and I are both insecure and troubled guys. So working with me professionally was always really easy. I always have this like outsized big personality publicly, but the reason I kept getting hired and getting work is because I'm fast, I take notes well, I'm easy in rooms generally. Josh is big. So he really, the end of me and Josh was, we're not enemies and we don't dislike each other. We've talked recently, but I was like, come back and make Chronicle 2 because otherwise it won't get made. Come back and make it, otherwise it won't get made. And fuck, dude, he didn't. He went and did Fantastic Four, and he was sort of on his own thing. Do I still talk to the Red Letter Media guys? I email with Mike like once a year. I really got along with Mike. I seemed crazy because I was so nervous on that Red Letter Media, but I loved him. Is there a secret to taking criticism well? I'm sure there is, but I don't know it. I can take criticism if it's a job on my art really, really well. Actually, that's not true. Fuck. I actually have a problem now in relationships where it's incredibly easy to gaslight me because I've done all this work, and also not like gaslight like big time, but like because I'm so unsure of myself. I was in a relationship for a little while that had ups and downs, was mostly great. But one of the things that was interesting is sometimes the person I was dating would do these crazy, horrible things or say something so shockingly mean. And I would go, hey, hand to heart, what you just said really fucked with me. That's not okay. And they would go, are you sure that's not just your narcissism? You know, there's been a lot of things written about you, Max, and I know they haven't shown up in our relationship, but, and I was like, oh yeah, I'm sorry. Say whatever you want to me. Oh, I got canceled. Say whatever you want to me. And like, that just let me get abused by someone who wasn't even an abuser. They were just being an asshole to me, and I didn't have the tools to defend myself. When I say I'm insecure, what do I mean exactly? I mean, isn't it obvious? I feel like most people who watch me either think I'm the most confident guy in the world or the most insecure guy in the world because I'm so affected and theatrical and like big. I'm insecure because what are you talking about? I'm insecure about my looks. I'm insecure about my work. Who knows what my career is going to be? Every time I'm in a social situation, and this is way before the public shaming, I'm terrified that people won't understand me or won't like me. I have a very big personality. Throughout my life, it's been very easy for people to meet me and very quickly dislike me. So the last 5 years have been me shrinking that. I'm insecure about everything, man. I mean, I'm constantly watching myself now and spot checking myself, which is what you have to do, you know? Should Chronicle 2 be an all-female cast? Is that a poke at you? It was my first pitch. And they said no. They wanted a sequel to Chronicle. So I said, okay, so I wrote Martyr, and Martyr has female lead and enhanced female presence in the movie, the female CIA agent and stuff. I don't think it's a poke at me, but I also think it probably won't get made. Do you have hope about romantic love? Of course. Of course. I've felt Jake Gyllenhaal is great casting for my Luther because he's handsome. Of course, I have hope about my romantic love. How could I not? You have to I have hope about all kinds of love. Just because you're mentally ill, even if you have an attachment disorder, attachment is stuff that comes up in relationships a lot. Even if you have an attachment thing like I do, you can't stop. You can't give up on things because out there, I've met too many types of people. I've seen too much of the world. I've seen deeply mentally ill, toxic monsters madly in love with each other, living in a big house in Bel Air, having the time of their lives. I've seen emotionally immature, abusive psychos in rural Florida, madly in love with each other, living in a studio apartment, having the time of their lives. Love is a state of mind, and it's a state of connection. You can feel love even when you're not in love. And I know that because I've felt toxic love and I've given toxic love. But you can't give up on love. The whole thing we have is connecting with other people. And like, I have felt romantic love many times, not many times. Since the shaming, I have felt romantic love once. And it was a complicated relationship, but ultimately it was beautiful and I learned a lot. So, like, you're always going to learn, you know? You're in DBT. Hey, Heinrich. Hell yeah. Hell yeah. Sorry, someone in the chat just brought up dialectical behavioral therapy. If you're like me or you're like Heinrich and you have a few of the traits of something called borderline personality disorder, you should get into DBT because borderline, I could talk about for a long time. I've never been diagnosed borderline, but I recognized the abuser I dated was borderline. And I even have, yeah, here. The good old days. Loving someone with borderline personality disorder. And when you read this, it's literally like, they're going to be mean to you all the time for no reason. And then they're going to tell you they're madly in love with you. And you bought the book, dog. There's nothing you can do. That's the way it's going to be. But you know what? That's not the way it's going to be. Because they could get into DBT, they could get into borderline therapy, and they can find stopgaps like I have. If I can do it, borderline people can do it. So, like, proud of you. Johnny Depp and Amber Heard. Oh, you mean why public shaming shouldn't exist? That? I mean, like, do you ever feel resentful that women use their bodies to social climb in Hollywood that don't have much skill? Possibly ruining it for actual talented women. Who? Megan Fox and Megan Fox isn't even that famous. Who? Who are our beautiful actresses who are not talented? Who? Name one. Women use their beauty the same way that men use their bluster, okay? It's an in the room move. And I'm not resentful of any woman who uses the fact that she's a woman to get ahead because we live in a patriarchy. And you guys know I have my own views on all that, but I really believe we live in a patriarchy. I think something that doesn't get brought up with women is predatory dating. The fact that, especially in social circles, you'll know a woman who has only ever dated successful or rich guys in LA and never really has a job herself. Those are people I resent. But I don't resent them because they're women. I resent them because I think of them as users. Gal Gadot is a good actress. How do you manage burnout? I don't. I'm a mess. What is my support system? Do I have genuine people in my life that accept you unconditionally and you trust to support you constructively? Of course, I would have committed suicide when I got publicly shamed if I didn't have real friends. The great narrative of my public shaming was, and everyone thinks this and no one likes him and he's the worst, but that's not true. So, like, I have a very tight nucleus of about 8 people who, one of whom is so close, some of them are so close to me, they're like my family. And they didn't move during the shaming. They didn't move an inch. because they knew me and they knew those girls. And a lot of the stories they knew the real versions of, which don't make me sound great, but they also don't make me sound like fucking Rollo Tomasi, Kaiser Souze, whatever the fuck made up villain. Oh shit, my fucking thing is dying. Do you think diagnosed with ADHD at 40, struggling with a daily mental health routine? Does it help your daily writing routine? Chris, I don't have a daily writing routine. I don't have a mental health routine. I have integrated those things so much into my life that my mental health practices come up when I can tell I'm spinning out or talking too much or saying inappropriate things or getting off track or having bad boundaries. My stopgaps come up now. And a lot of times I'll question myself too much. In terms of writing, I would just be like I write whenever I want. It's great. I've always loved it. People always ask, like, how much should you write a day or you're a failure? And my problem with answering that question has always been just that I love to write and it's my great escape and it's the thing I love more than anything, but I also can't force myself to do it. So it's very frustrating. I can't like sit down and be like, now is the time that I write. Max, how do you deal with the voice in your head that speaks up that says, don't participate in life? You've made mistakes that you can't continue with. I struggle with this every day. When I was, I'll end it on this because I'm running out of battery. When I was publicly shamed, I became, okay, I'm gonna let you guys all the way in. So when I was publicly shamed in 2019 and I had the big article about me, I became suicidal. And I had heard, it was so funny, I had heard that one of my exes had said, he'll never commit suicide. He's too much of a narcissist, so it doesn't matter what happens to him. And I thought, yeah, maybe that's true. Maybe I should just die. And I'd never been suicidal. I'd thought I'd been suicidal because I thought, I wish I were dead when I was spiraling. We've all known people who go to that place where it's like, oh, I just want to kill myself. And they say it again and again, but they're not really suicidal. I became really suicidal. I've never experienced that before. My identity was destroyed. Even my close friends telling me they love me meant nothing if the entire world hated me and wanted me to die. So my parents and my family kind of checked me into this place called McLean. So I was in a locked ward in a mental asylum on the East Coast. And I was there for 2 months. And during that time, I just went in. I was like, my whole life I've had mental health problems. Now people say I'm a sociopath. I don't know that that's true. And some of this is lies, but I can think of things in my life. I'm just sick of being halfway there. I got the tattoo, but I'm still halfway there. And we went over all of my texts and emails with my various partners and went over all of my patterns in relationships, especially stuff that wasn't public. And I got a lot of good answers about myself. And I got a lot of rationality. But nothing made me feel more rational than I had this guy who was assigned to watch me 24 hours a day to make sure I didn't commit suicide. And eventually I asked the guy, like, there were two guys. This guy, Alex, who was really cool, and we watched Attack on Titan. He brought Attack on Titan. I was like, wow, being suicidal is a dream. It wasn't. This is the darkest part of my life. I'm sorry I'm smiling during it. I don't know what other face to make. But so this other guy got assigned to me one day, and he was like this guy in his early 40s. And he was really good. And I really liked him. And I was like, how'd you get this job? How do you end up doing this? And he was like, well, I was an alcoholic and I started hitting my wife. And I was sitting in the car with him, like, and then he went, and I started hitting her so much. One time I was hitting her and choking her. And I was drunk and I just went crazy. And I choked her almost to death. And the cops came and I was in jail for 4 years. And I was like, and he was like, yeah, so then got out of jail and got into therapy. And I was staying with my brother and I put my life back together and I got a degree and I got a job and now I have a wife and 2 kids. And now I do this to give back to people who are in a dark space like I was. And I thought, Man, you're lucky you're not famous, dude, or you would have not been able to recover your life. You would have people on Twitter telling you it does sound like I'm pitching a character, right? It's you know what the fucking problem is? I always sound like I'm pitching, and it's because I was raised in a house where movies were the love language and stories were how I got attention from my parents. So I'm still doing it, except for I grew to love it. Anyway, I really, 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 yeah, Loki, that when you don't want to, when you don't want to live anymore and just want it all to end, that is not the same as being suicidal. As someone who's been suicidal now, I felt that way. That's baby shit. Suicidal is you keep thinking. It's an intrusive thought. It's like a thought loop. You're like, I'm going to kill myself. I have to kill myself. It's the only answer. You like can't get away from it. It's fucking terrible. Chris Brown did not go through something similar and make a comeback. Chris Brown tried to murder Rihanna, got off extremely easy, has since attacked 2 other women and continues to be successful because Me Too doesn't exist in music. Sorry. But yeah, stories is how I got attention from my parents. I think that makes up who Max is. Surprise, surprise, you know me now. But the truth is, humans are not Twitter, right? Killers become priests. Great leaders become tyrants. Good men become bad. Good women do evil. We don't exist in a narrative-based world. We exist in a world with a bunch of different contexts that shapes different perspectives. This moralizing thinking, this religious-based thinking where there's such a thing as a bad person. Yeah, I think there's such a thing as a bad person, but I think they're incredibly rare. Like, I think a bad person is as rare as a good person. I think they're just fucking rare. And I think everybody else is a messy, complicated thing who loudly wants to yell about how actually they're the real version of a good person. I don't know. I don't know, man. Ever think about directing a porno? I don't know. In a lot of those OnlyFans videos filmed in LA, you don't see the guy whose dick the girl is sucking. So maybe I've already been in a porno. A bad person is a person who never looks into themselves. No, because some of the worst people I know reflect into themselves, but they don't realize they're running software on broken hardware. So they end up, I've known people who like do mushrooms and do self-help programs and come away worse because their insights are that they're an asshole, you know? Okay, one more question, then I gotta go. Please, mental health. I ground myself mainly through meditation these days, but only when I need to. Okay, yeah. Reading. Do I forgive myself? For some things, yeah. For a lot of things. But, it's about evolving. The life Keggy, why are you worried about me? I'm doing really well. Is it just because I seem hyper? Could I possibly seem hyper and agitated because I'm talking about incredibly personal things in a public way and I drink a Red Bull? Like, y'all are. What one thing do you regret the most? Not buying Bitcoin when my friend Andrew told me to. That and blowing up. I would say my relationships, but where all those people are now and where I am now, we're all in a better place. So, like, you can only spend so much time. You can only spend so much time. Their art in reflecting mental states, honesty, and not the key to portraying mental health in art is about honesty, is about not doing the narrative version. Okay, guys, my computer's dying. I hope this was helpful, and I hope I wasn't too hyper. You know, it's so funny. I always see people in this thing thinking I'm like trying to get pandemic took a toll on my mental health, trying to get back to feeling good about myself. Is there an important first step to take when it comes to that? Exercise, yoga, going for walks, going for hikes, going for runs. I wish it wasn't true. The reason, like, people have commented on Instagram, the reason I like look kind of strong now is because I'm nuts. Like, I go to CrossFit and yoga and work out all the time when I'm not writing because it helps me focus. It brings me back into my body. It's so wonderful. Um, and also, don't make your life about getting forgiveness or anything. Make your life about making sure you don't fuck up. Make your life about staying balanced and respecting other people and giving love out to the world. Giving love can be really healing. I know that one of the things that really helped me through the darkest times of my life was that often I had a friend who I got to be there for, even while I was suffering. Um, yeah, I'm getting the McFarlane Spidey bod. That's what I'm going for. My goal, my goal, 10 years from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 46. I want to be a Topanga Canyon yoga dad. I want to have a kid. I want to be totally at peace with myself. I want to be married. I want to be ready to have a dog. I don't like dogs right now, but I want to grow enough that I love them. My friend told me never to apologize to anyone for anything, and that's the best advice I ever had. Keggy, you're worried about me? I'm worried about you. Always apologize for everything. Apologizing costs you nothing. The only people you shouldn't apologize to are people who are attacking in bad faith. And you often won't know who they are until you really think about it. Yeah, my battery's been dying this whole time. Okay, guys. Any advice for being a good teacher via Glass Planet? You're a real teacher. Don't ask me for advice. Make yourself available and listen. Engage deeply with the stories you're being told. Okay, I gotta go. Squid Game was very pretty.